Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of All Knicked Up. Yes, your screen is correct. All three of us are on the screen as we start the show. Some of you might be wondering, though, we were supposed to have a fourth member. Apparently, he couldn't make it tonight. Maybe they put three on him instead of the two, and it's too difficult. So he's being held back now. Couldn't break through anymore. I'm just playing. Jonathan, I hope everything's all right with you, man. We'll get you back on again some other time. So it is nice to be back. I have missed a couple of weeks of this show, this great show. I've been running around work and a lot of stuff going on with my life, but I'm back this week. Post draft, I did catch a little bit of your draft show last week, as you guys saw. I popped in, left some comments while you guys were discussing things. So it was an interesting night because I was at the Mets. I was actually at the Mets Yankee game, and I'm trying to watch that game and then keep an eye on the draft. And then we got the rain delay, so I was sitting in the rain delay, and that's when I hopped in with you guys. I'm like, it gives me time to see what's going on in the show. Well, yeah, man, it was a interesting couple of days before, and the draft itself. I have not yet given my take on the trade. So I'm sure you used this last week. There we go again. Michael Bridges, however you want to say his name, is now a New York Knick. I'm fine with the trade, honestly. I thought the draft picks were a little too much. I don't know. I think putting all of he's the move, right? I don't think they can make another one. I don't anyway. I know a lot of people think they might be able to. I don't think they can. I think this is the move they're going to make. So this is the core team we have going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how it works with Julius back in the mix. But I mean, he's exactly what to me OG is. He's just a little better, a little bit better scorer, really good defender. He does the same thing. So now we have two guys like that. We'll get to OG in a minute because I didn't give my thoughts on that contract either. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with the trade. Like I said, I thought the picks might have been a little much, but you knew if the Nets were going to trade with the Knicks, there was going to be some kind of tax involved because
exactly.
Yeah.
So
yep. So that's what happened, and look, we know from the beginning the chemistry should be fine with the key players. That's the one key of this move is that he knows our star player. He knows Josh Hart, obviously, Dante DiVincenzo. He knows these guys. So that shouldn't be a difficult transition for him. Going to be interesting to see how he plays for this coach. I mean, all these guys seem to respond well to Tibbs, but you never know. It's going to be interesting to see what lineups they put together. So that's all going to be fun. So it's going to be I don't know. I was trying to think how it impacts the East, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the center position and what happened with that. But I was trying to think how much more this moves us ahead, or are we in the same position? I think from a flexibility standpoint, it gives the Knicks a lot of maneuverability within games. Like you could put OG and Bridges on guys, and hopefully you cancel them out, take away scoring options, make teams easier to defend. But I don't know. I don't know how. Like I said, I felt like when he first got traded to the Nets, he showed that he could be a much better scorer as the first option. But then last year he wasn't the same player. He took kind of a little dip. So I don't know. What do you guys think about from that point of view? We know what he can bring defensively. You guys probably talked about this, but really quick, what do you guys think from an offensive creation perspective with him?
I would say that he's not a primary offense generator. I think he's a supportive offensive player. I think he's a secondary or tertiary option, and I think he is an outstanding one. I think fitting him back into an offense where he's not expected to be that, and I think that was the problem with the last season in, I want to say New Jersey, but it's Brooklyn, I guess. Is he was never that guy. I think you're going to see more of the player that was in Phoenix. I think that he will fit in like a glove with these other guys. He's played with them before. There is personal and professional chemistry there. I think from an offense, we know, again, what he can contribute defensively. But it's going to be a locker room edition. It's going to be a chemistry edition. And again, I think he's going to take on a lot of the role of the secondary scorer. Depending on where Randall is in the equation and what Randall's game looks like next year, he might very well be a secondary option. And I think that he is capable of fulfilling that in a plus kind of way.
All right. Yeah, I think offensively, when you think about him, this is the ideal role for him. I think New Jersey, we'll keep it about. It is New Jersey because nobody gives a damn about what they're doing in Brooklyn. But however, I think this just basically puts him in his right lane. He is more of the complementary player. When we saw him in Phoenix, he was thriving in that situation. He's probably he's like a Pippen, basically. Not saying he is Scottie Pippen, but when you think about the ultimate role player that he could be, it's along the lines of Pippen picking up maybe the tough cover, can create some offense as well. You might see him actually score a little bit more because no one will be concentrating on him as much as they will with Brunson and Randall. So this kind of frees up Mikal Bridges just to be the Mikal Bridges he was drafted to be, which is a defensive juggernaut, which he's capable of being, but not look to him to be a stud scorer. He's not a stud scorer. That's why we're looking at him in Brooklyn last year. He probably got tired. He's like, this is not who I am. I don't carry this, and we're losing on top of it. I think he just kind of cashed in and just assumed that they were going nowhere, and why would he even be that vested in the team in itself? So I think it's a perfect role. It is absolutely the perfect role. I think he will take on some of the role of what Randall's doing. I think you'll see him score a little bit more, though. I think it'll actually. I think you'll see Julius get pulled back a little bit in this offense, in my opinion.
I agree.
You'll start to see Mikal say, "I got this. I'm going down. I have this. I have this on the wing." And Julius is going to be a little bit more complimentary. I think you'll see that this year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just interested to see. I do think having those two kind of will definitely alleviate some of the pressure on Brunson, of course, and then having Bridges as well will alleviate Julius's need sometimes to be on the perimeter. Mm-hmm. So if he can just stay down low where we all like him and below the free throw line where he's really, really effective, it could work out for the best. Again, he had the opportunity. He looked like he was going to break out and actually be a better player than I thought he was. And then last season he took a little bit of a dip. And it could be for all the reasons that you guys stated. Like he didn't want to be there. It really wasn't what he could do. Teams were focusing on him and he doesn't have the game to counter that. It could have been all of those things. Mm-hmm. But the Knicks are definitely a better team, especially on the perimeter defensively.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that is probably the biggest takeaway. And with this coach, we all know how important that is. So to him. So the other one, we'll go real quick. All right. This conversation has to be had because first I want to say this. I like him as a player. That's number one. I'm going to say that up top. I like him as a player. I like what he brings. But this contract to me is a contract you give a guy who is a more well-rounded player. And I don't see that with him. Yes, we saw it in the playoff game. He had that 26 points before he ripped the hamstring to shreds. And he was playing great offensively that game. But he'll have a game like that. And then the next game he'll have 10 points and, So I don't see the consistency there for an overall player. We know what he can bring defensively. We know how much the difference he makes. What was it, 31-5 total with him in the lineup, something like that? I mean, that's ridiculous. It definitely does bear out, and you want to keep him. But, man, that contract to me is just a lot of money. And I know, like, next year the salary cap is supposed to go up and it keeps going up. So over time it might not look as bad. But from first glance, that first shock, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for him. And Ty, you could speak because you were saying we weren't going to like the numbers. So
Well, we can call this kind of the Great Balls of Fire. That's literally what this is. He had the Knicks by the Great Balls of Fire. They had to sign them.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. look at the imminent threat that is Philly, and then we're looking at the record that they had while he was in the lineup. Then you're seeing just the overall impact of the team. You hear how favorable the players talk about having an OG and how he made the game a lot easier for them. So all these endorsement deals, right time, right place. The juice was coming out of the orange. He's like, well, I'm going to own Tropicana now because now you have to pay me. And the Knicks had to pony up. They had to back up the Brinks truck. Reluctantly, I'm more than sure because they were probably thinking he would be in that $140 million range. Yeah. Everybody was assuming that it would probably fall into because we do realize how limited he is offensively. We do realize that he's more of a Rodman type. And I don't mean he's Dennis Rodman, but what his calling card has nothing to do with the offensive end. It's the total impact he's going to have on the defensive end. And he is a game changer. He's a outlier as far as defense. But what we're looking at is two things in New York. I mean, we'll look at a couple things. We always look at how much you're getting paid. That's the first thing that always comes to mind. Then we look at your game. And we say, wow, he does have the impact. But what we will be seeing this year is a demand for him to be a lot more than just somebody who is getting steals in the lane and, kind of shutting down the guy. They're going to look for him to have some offensive impact as well, especially if things follow trait. There's going to be injuries. So they're going to expect him to do what Mikal Bridges is going to do probably if someone goes down and he has to replace him, which is he's an all-around better player. It's an ugly number, but they have to do it. They have to do it.
I agree totally. One of the right before the episode that we had, the show that we had right before that contract was signed, me and Tyler were both sitting here going, "You can't max this guy out. You can't do it." Mm-hmm. Now, technically, he didn't sign for the max. He did about $2.5 million less than his max annual salary would have been. He got the extra year, but there was the understanding that there were teams willing to max him out at 4 years. That's one of the reasons that trade kicker was there. If you trade me out, I want to get close to what that max salary is and what I could have got if you're going to send me elsewhere. That's why I suspect the trade kicker was there. There were people that were willing to pay it. I believe Philly probably played that. I think Utah was one of the teams that they said were very interested in paying that. There were teams out there that would have maxed him out. As before they made the Bridges trade, we talked about, if it gets too hairy, just pivot. But after they made the Bridges trade, you could not pivot anymore. You had spent your wad. You had pushed your chips in. You had to absolutely sign him. Mm-hmm. Or else you pushed your chips in for nothing. It was about now, and they had to sign him. It is a big number, and I know that everybody here is not crazy about the availability that he's had. We hope that's going to improve with time. Dude needs to get in a yoga studio, stretch out those hamstrings, get limber, get resistant to the wear and tear of, Clyde can take you. Clyde's been doing yoga since like the late 60s. He can take you. Dude needs to get in a yoga studio. But, it's like I've said before, whatever you think the acquisition cost is for a player that you're trading for, it's going to be more. Mm-hmm. Whatever you think it's going to take to sign someone, it's going to take more than the fan thinks. We've tossed around a lot of ideas on message boards and this and that of what it always winds up being more. It was just a lot more in this situation.
Yeah, man, $42.5 million per season for this guy is really tough for me to accept.
Yeah.
But one good thing is it's not my money, so I'm not paying it. That check would bounce if I was paying it, so just put that out there right now. And number two, you're right. Like once they made that trade, it was clear they were going all in right now, and then you think, well, and they gave up 2 young, promising players for him. Yeah. Everything put together, like they have to keep him now. There was some nervous moments. I really thought he might go to Philadelphia. I was very, very scared that he was gonna. I didn't mind if he left. I just didn't want him to go there. Like I was like, please don't go to Philadelphia. God, Craig would have had a heart attack. If he would have gone to Philly, that would have been a rough one for him to take. But now we have, like I said, this is kind of the core of the team now. Those 4 guys. So it depends. We'll see what happens with Julius. There's still some conversation going on. We'll get into it a little bit later about what this conversation around him. But the last thing we have to discuss, because I think we all are kind of upset about this, but we kind of saw it coming, was Isaiah Hartenstein deciding to leave us and go and go play for the Thunder. I will give one guy credit in all of this, Ian Begley, because he said it from the beginning. Do not expect him back. I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah. And
he was right. He said expect them to keep OG. They kept OG. So Ian Begley nailed this from the beginning. And it was rough to take, but I can't blame the guy. We kept saying who would walk away from that money.
No,
that kind of money, you know. He's not a superstar player. So when you get a chance to cash in, you have to, you know, do your thing. You're right. We already know he has back ailments and little ailments here and there. He's a tall guy, so you don't know how long.
Achilles.
Yeah. Don't know how long he's gonna be able to play either. So he made the right decision for him and his family. I think that's kind of been the general consensus of the other Knicks fans that I've been reading. But it does leave a big hole at backup center. We still have not signed one. It was hysterical watching every player that like Craig would send us in the group. Another center that left. I was like, oh, what about Mo Bamba? Then like 10 minutes later, Mo Bamba signs.
Another
for $5 million a year.
I know. It was just funny because we would be talking like, oh, well, there's still these guys left. And then like 10, 15 minutes later, boom, he's gone. He goes somewhere else. But yeah, so what do you guys think now? I mean, obviously Precious Achiuwa is still out there. I think he's a real possibility that might bring him back. They know what he's like. He can play the position. He's not tall, but he has super long arms, so that's what makes him really a good backup center. But is there anyone else out there that you guys are looking at that maybe could come in? And
I've heard there's a possibility of looking into trading for Walker Kessler,
right,
from Utah. And I'm forgetting the name right now. I'm trying to look it up. The backup center for Charlotte were both mentioned.
Richards.
Yes. Both of them have been mentioned as potential trade targets for the Knicks.
All right. Well, I watched Kessler back in college, and I thought he should have been drafted higher. I even said that. He does exactly what Mitch does.
That dude's like the eraser, man. How many shots did he block as a rookie?
Yeah, he set records. He's fantastic. That whole situation is hysterical, though. What's going on in Utah? With Kyle Filipowski, and that is just
this is some weird stuff in Utah.
Your babysitter is your fiance. That's like the tagline. Should be the tagline. Imagine your babysitter becomes your fiance. That should be. That sounds like a entertainment reality show. But no, it's true. So that whole situation there. I don't know what they're doing. Markkanen's possibly available. We keep hearing that he might be out. Colin Sexton's name gets thrown out there with a lot of trades. So, Ty, you hear all this stuff regarding Utah. Is it all smoke? Is there any fire there, you think?
Well, I think when you're dealing with anything, Danny Ainge, he's going to try to drive up the price tag to begin with. So maybe all of this supposed issue and conflict is for him to start fielding offers. Someone's going to say, oh, Markkanen's available. What do you want for him? Thinking that it's going to be on the cheap. But meanwhile, you're going to be paying through the nose pretty much with any deal that comes from him. I don't know. There's been conflicting reports. Lauri Markkanen, they say wants to stay in Utah. That's one of the things he likes being there. So, are you really trying to get rid of that kind of player? I mean, we've heard Golden State as a destination for him. As far as Walker Kessler, it's just very. I don't think the Knicks have the means to go get him.
No.
Because the draft assets, I always tell people we still have picks, you can't use them. That's the thing you got to have under the understanding. We can't do back-to-back years of trading picks. So we do have picks, they cannot be utilized in a trade. So the question now becomes, can you either get a third team, or how interested are the Utah Jazz in obtaining Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride?
Could we use the Washington and the Detroit picks?
I think you can.
Yeah,
You can move those. Mm-hmm. You can move those. I mean, how valuable are they? I mean, Detroit's going to be a dumpster fire for how long? I mean, this is just talk about bad franchises.
Well, we're going to talk about them too because there's a rumor surrounding some of those guys over there. So we'll talk about them in a minute as well. But
so you have this open, forum as far as with these guys. You don't. I mean, the math works with Kessler and Colin Sexton for Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson. The money's work. The question is, how much do you value Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson? As I told someone earlier today, you probably, if you put a gun to Tibbs' head, he's still not trading. I don't see him personally trading them at all. However, how does the franchise view any moves? We're hearing from Katz speak about the Knicks are worried about the hard cap on the first apron. That's what they're trying to avoid. Still, those guys, I mean, obviously Walker Kessler, him and McBride make the same amount of money, I believe, or near the same amount. I don't know. I mean, I think that would be pretty much one of the more even trades if they actually did go down. Colin Sexton's a dog. I mean, you want that guy on your squad. He's a little frantic acting though. I don't know. I mean, it's just a very hard
love him.
Age. I mean, I don't think you can rely on Mitch. I love Mitch. This is no Mitch slander. I would love to have him here, but it's the health issue with Mitch, and we are in a championship window right now. Are we going to be relying on a player that come December, a couple things are going to happen. Santa Claus is going to come. There's going to be Black Friday, and Mitch is going to get hurt. Those are the things you can count on every December. So how much do you invest in this guy thinking that he's going to be there for you with the long haul? So that kind of trade kind of piques my interest, but I just don't think we have enough assets. I can't see what's going to happen.
I could see a trade necessarily not involving all those pieces, maybe Walker Kessler, McBride. And moving on McBride may seem a little bit better if you have Kolick as your backup point guard that you just picked up in the draft, who seems to kind of fit that mold and would probably be quite successful as a backup point guard and also a distributor, somebody that can run an offense perhaps better than Deuce McBride can.
Yes.
So there's that. Maybe with some combination of the Washington and the Detroit picks for Kessler. That would lower the salaries a little bit because we're sending in less, I believe, because I think Kessler's 22nd pick in that draft. Deuce was 36, so there will be some difference in those salaries. But, the backup center is a situation that we really need to address, and I don't believe having a 6'7" backup center is a plan for that. I like Precious Achiuwa, but he's a power forward. I'm not convinced that he is a center and that he can pick up primary responsibility for playing the 5 over an entire season. I don't buy that. I do like him as a player. We need somebody that can, for lack of a better term, and we've heard this 1,000 times from Tibbs, protect the rim. Protect the rim, offensive rebounds. That's what a center in this system does. Having Precious Achiuwa as your backup in that situation with a starter whose health is always a concern, like everybody's been saying here, that's a concern. That should keep you up at night now, especially when you think about how important rim protection and offensive rebounding is to this entire system, especially offensive rebounds when it comes to offensive efficiency with this team. We need to come up with a better option. It's not Precious Achiuwa.
Well, I'll say this about him. Ben Ritholtz, who's one half of the Knicks. I forget which show that is, the one with Macri, who I don't like. Knicks Film School. He's really good with the analytics part of it, and he always said during the season that Achiuwa was graded out much better at center than he did at power forward. So there is that from an analytics point of view. Joe, I tend to lean with you on this, that height-wise, it just doesn't look like that. But the numbers, that's what the numbers bore out. So there is that analytics piece I wanted to throw in there. This trade, this rumor was posted today in The Athletic, and it's going back to Detroit. I'm going to bring it up because we're talking about backup center options, and he would probably be the starter, Jalen Duren, if they got him. But this was a rumor that came up today. It's Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren for Mitch Robinson, Deuce McBride, Detroit 2025 pick back to them, and future second-round picks. And the big linchpin to this was Detroit getting that pick back, number one. And number two was they have to pay both Duren and Ivey next year, and they might not want to do that. They just gave Cade Cunningham a huge contract. Mitch's contract is descending. Deuce is on a great contract, so this would be something financially for them. And Trajan Langdon, who's now the GM over there, he didn't draft either guy. So all those things considered, that was the reasoning behind this. Now, from a very high level, to me, this trade looks ridiculous. I would do this in 2 seconds, not even think twice. And I would run it and be like, yes, let's do it. I'd finish. They'd be explaining it. I'd be like, yes, before they finish the last sentence on the phone. But a little pie in the sky, maybe, I don't know. But what do you guys think of this specific rumor? First of all, would you do it? And second of all, do you think it's even realistic?
I think it's realistic. I think it's realistic because you're moving a regime in another direction right now. When you have Trajan Langdon is coming in, Detroit obviously has a couple sewer issues going on there. They got to plug up some toilets and everything else around there. They're probably having a hard time getting people through the gates also. So, when you got a player like Cade Cunningham, you would think that would actually be an obvious draw to the fan base. But they know it's a dumpster fire. You're not winning. They've been a carousel of coaches. Last year was an abomination from a franchise standpoint. What do they have to do? They have to bring in some winning culture. The winning culture can come from a person like a Deuce McBride, like a Mitchell Robinson, even a Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Timmy, but he does bring in a professionalism, and he's been around the league. So he is that vet that's going to kind of get in those kids' face and say, hey, look, we're not doing that around here. Let's start thinking about winning. You need to bring in those quality vets. We have to question, I think we brought it up on another show, about what is going on in Detroit, and I know we talked off camera about the dynamic of having a Cade Cunningham and you're still losing. There's something mixed up within that locker room. Ivy was sat at one point on the bench in place of someone else by Monty Williams. So I'm more than sure that must be somewhat of a dynamic, not saying that Ivy's a bad kid. This might be a bad fit, a personality issue with the players. Maybe he is a player that likes to win or is not happy when he's losing. He could be just the opposite. It doesn't have to always be a negative in the sense of being a locker room cancer. It might just be, hey, just a conflict of interest between the players. These young guys are not built like veterans. So, Ivy comes from a professional background, with his mom playing, I think, WNBA. Yeah. So, he's coming in with maybe a little bit of attitude. He's from the Detroit area or whatever, or family from the Detroit area. So, all those dynamics on the table, this might be time to move him out. The talent we know obviously is there. He was a high pick. Everybody wanted him. The Knicks fan base, myself included, wanted him to be on the Knicks. And when we look at a guy like Duren, he was a Knick. This would have been the perfect understanding. See, Knick fans, this is why we're paying 9 picks for Mikal Bridges, because we screwed up the first time. And the same thing is applying to Duren right now when you think about him. He was also in our possession, and we all know around that time, we're like, well, why would you not draft a backup to Mitch? Because Mitch is injured. Well, here we are again. We're going back, and we're probably going to repay a payer's tax that we could have actually gotten for free on our own. So, yeah, those two guys, I like the dynamic of bringing them in. You're getting a lot more athletic. You're getting a lot. They're both tenacious players. Mitch, love him, but like I said, I'd sub out my mom if she's not playing good. I tell people that all the time, and that's just facts. I would have no hesitation in making this move. Give them back that damn pick because they're never going to be that terrible. Enough that they're not going to be that great for you not to cash in on that pick. It's probably going to turn into 2 second rounds at some point anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd make that deal. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Let go of the emotional attachment you got to these players. It's about winning a title this year. If Jaden Ivey's on your bench, that's your bench player. I love Deuce. Deuce is developed, but Deuce can go to Detroit for Ivy because the potential is there when Brunson is maybe on the downside of his career, now you got this up and coming star or stud type player that you can also keep in the developmental loop and replenish when needed. So yes, do this trade. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Looking at this trade, it's pretty obvious a Knick fan came up with this. Like, this is the kind of trade that you would see.
It wasn't. No.
It wasn't.
This is the kind of trade that you would see on a fan board because it's one that we absolutely win, humiliate the other team. I mean, this is the kind of trade that makes a GM's career. Now, as inept as the previous regime in Detroit was, they may have considered this. Trajan Langdon would get run out of town for this because not necessarily on the merits of this pick. It's okay if you want to get rid of Duren and Ivey. They're not your guys. They can get a better return than this easily elsewhere in the NBA. I don't believe that this is the best offer that they could get for those players. Duren really played out. Have you seen some of the stat lines that he put up last year when they did play him? He's a beast. Other teams are aware of that. They would get more than Miles McBride, Detroit's 2025 heavily protected pick, in some seconds for that. Just for one of those players, let alone also adding Ivy. Now, so of course you do this trade. I mean, come on. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, are you going to be able to pay them as well? Look at a salary cap situation in the land of aprons. Are you really going to be able to pay them? Or do you maybe hold one of them and let Randall expire and take Duren on? So, yes, you absolutely do this, but I don't think this is a realistic trade. I don't think Langdon would do this. I think that if they shop those players around, they would get much more than this in return, just not from the Knicks.
Well, let me tell you who proposed this. It wasn't a Knicks writer. It was actually the Pistons writer for The Athletic.
His mom is a Knicks fan then.
No, number two, he's James Edwards' the basketball player.
Oh, yeah.
Grandson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was a good post player, James Edwards.
Yeah, he was a beast down in the paint.
Yeah,
He
so
had a mustache.
yes.
Yeah.
His son, I think his son, or I think it might be his son, because he might be not that old. But if you see the picture of him, he looks exactly like him. Like when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Looks exactly like him. So I mean, again, I agree with you, Joe. It does seem very, very unrealistic, but you never know. Like, I didn't think that we'd get 8,000 picks for Rudy Gobert, and I didn't think that DeJounte Murray would be traded for 4,000 picks. And the last couple of years have been really weird.
Or killing trees. Or killing trees.
I would trade Mitch the pick in seconds for Duren without McBride and Ivy involved.
Yeah, I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that. That'd be a trade.
Duren would look really good on this team.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think Duren would be – he's a better offensive player than Mitch, so you already have that in the bag. And then when Mitch first came in, he was more athletic, and I was talking about this before with the guys. I said I think he needs to lose some of that weight he put on. Yeah. I know he bulked up because they wanted him to be able to bang, but I don't know if his body can hold it. That's the thing. His body might not be built. He has from the looks of it, he has a very low bait. Like his lower body doesn't look that big or muscular or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if his body can handle that much weight, especially with the way he likes to play.
Wondering that too.
Yeah. So it's just something that literally just came today, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. We could talk about it tonight." This specific trade. So you mentioned, let's go through. I didn't see the show last week, so I don't know how much you discussed the actual picks that were made. So if you guys want to run down those guys, we can. If not, all right. So I have to be honest, I don't know much about this guy.
Neither did we.
If you don't know who he is, we didn't know who he was.
I did a little background after they picked him and whatever. Like, okay, we'll see. I'm not exactly enthused. To me, they picked him because they could stash him, even though he's saying he doesn't want to be stashed. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. But I don't know. Where does he play? Like, I don't know.
He's in the German league.
No, I know where he plays physically. I mean, on the court. Like, where would we play him?
He's a wing player.
Yeah.
They mostly what he's been playing so far in Germany, from what I'm reading, is he is a kick out shooter of threes at this point. It's pretty much he's not a pull up 3-point shooter. He's someone they kick out to shoot from three. That's pretty much what his game is at this point. What I read is that he's got the capability to grow in other areas, but that's how he's being utilized in Germany right now.
Okay.
One interesting thing that I noticed on him is he's 18 and he's still growing. He does have a good skill set. He will learn defense under Thibs. I grew between 18 and 21. I grew like 2.5 more inches myself. You stick another 2 inches on the kid with his skill set, you're looking at a completely different player. 6'10", wing skill set, plus jumper, teach him some defense. I mean, you're looking at, if he does get another growth spurt, this could be a completely different player.
Okay. Ty, you see anything about this kid that you like?
Well, he reminded me a little bit of the guy in Miami, Honey. Is it Honey? Watkins?
Yeah. Hawkins, yeah.
When you start looking at his game, a little bit of the footage I watched. Well, I watched a lot of the footage, but it still seemed the most repetitive type of move still. But he reminded me a little bit of him. But I'm going to piggyback and agree with Joe. First, this is completely a stash player. He's going to be in Westchester if he doesn't want to go back. That's where you're going to be. It might, benefit them to keep him actually, with the regular team. Iron sharpens iron. It would be a great move on their behalf. But this is a wait and see. I think if they develop him right, like they did Goose McBride, you can have a very solid, definitely NBA pro. That's the floor on him. Could he be a lot more? Absolutely. It's really what they decide to, work on his development. He's got a lot of energy because the first thing I noticed he was French. I'm like, oh God, he's never going to make it through Madison Square Garden. When I heard that name, I'm like, the Knicks don't draft French players, nor do Knicks fans want French players. But then watching him, I'm like, he's a little bit different. This is not your Frank Ntilikina, your passive type player. Although I was a fan of Ev. These younger kids have more of the Wembanyama kind of attitude. Like they're very aggressive. They have a little bit more show to their game. They want to be an individual. But his motor was very good. His energy is good. He's a lanky kid. He will grow a little bit more. He'll get stronger. So who knows? This is a kick the ball down the field a little bit. You're punting him for a bit and let him develop, and then you'll see. He's not going to play. I mean, unless the Knicks lose all their players, in an ice skating accident, he's never going to play or see the floor. So, basically it's a wait and see. He's 3 years down the line, so he's getting stashed, just maybe not stashed overseas.
Yeah.
One thing I think that's different about this drafting philosophy from what we expect is it's not the 23-year-old kid that's got a complete game that we know what we're getting. Like this could really pay off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're dealing with upside here. He's a pretty skilled kid at 6'9", and if he starts to grow and fills out, this could potentially really pay off.
The one thing I love is the age. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So you have a guy this young and you're bringing him in. If he's coachable, then your guys are right. Like this very well we could look back in a few years and be like, wow, this guy, excellent player.
Yeah.
Maybe not a star, but a starter, which would be nice if you could develop a starter out of this. Would be good. So yeah, I mean, like I said, age out. You guys know, if you guys both know me long enough to know that if you're picking a European player, I always say go as young as you can because you can stash them. They have time to develop the base skills that they have because of how they teach people over there should be high automatically.
Right.
So I'm, like I said, I don't know much about him. I did look a little bit at him. I agree with a lot of you, especially about his motor. He does seem to have a good one. So that's always a plus in my book. If you have a good motor and he's coachable, you have something to mold. So we'll see what happens there. But the next guy I know a lot about. and I was a proponent of drafting him.
Mhm.
When I heard they traded up for him, I was thrilled. He could have gone at the pick we took the other guy at. Like, I don't think anyone would have argued.
Mhm.
Leader, tough, can shoot, all the things that TJ McConnell was that
Yeah,
beat us. This guy is.
good comparison.
Yes, and I'm happy the Knicks got him. I happy they targeted him. Obviously, when they had to trade up to get him, you know that he was a target for them because they did not want him to go any further.
Mhm.
I can't wait to see what he brings. I am not concerned at all about backup point guard anymore. He can come in right away and play and be the
Mhm.
backup point guard for his team.
Absolutely.
Upperclassman, again, everything about him is fantastic. So this was a pick I was thrilled about. I don't know how much you guys have watched, seen him. I'm sure you've watched footage, but I watched him a lot in college,
Mhm.
and he's the guy. Like, he is that leader type guy that you want. So you guys have any comments you want to add?
I think there might. I think it was a good strategic pick in that I do think that the Knicks, not to go on too much of a tangent here, but I do think that there is going to have to be another move somewhere down the line. And I think McBride is one of our more tradable assets with the contract that he's on. I think this kid can plug in and be our backup point guard and maybe bring value in some ways that Deuce can't. Maybe not a stronger defender, but as solid a shooter, leader, and a distributor, someone who can run an offense, like I mentioned before, not just bring the ball up, run an offense.
Mhm.
So again, tremendous value at this point. There was a cluster of guys at the top of that second round that looked like they were good value.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this was one of the guys that you looked at and you're like, okay, he slid a little bit. And they jumped on it, and I think that it's an excellent selection.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting to see how that backup point guard situation will turn out because he's seems more the fully formed product and will probably warrant playing time. It's going to be fun watching him in summer league. That he's the one that I'm looking forward to seeing the most in summer league.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like the kid. I mean, I'm a traditionalist. That's how I think about basketball. I always think the point guard. I love the pass first point guard or the setup point guard. Something that the Knicks have been lacking for a lot of years. Just to keep it real. We've seen it with Mark Jackson. We didn't get a chance to see it, obviously, with Rod Strickland. Was Marbury capable of being that kind of player? Absolutely. Was he that kind of player? No. We always needed to have that headsy point guard that can make everyone else around him better and kind of get everyone involved. This kid fits the bill. Let me just talk a little bit about the Deuce McBride situation also. When people think about, oh, we can't trade Deuce, you have to look at the pecking order now. Two guys are going to the bench that are very favorable to Tom Thibodeau that kind of replicate what Deuce provides in Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo. Where's Deuce's role in that lineup when he comes back? Because technically Dante is probably going to handle the rock a lot more. He's going to probably be your backup guard, so to say. He's a combo guard by nature. He was in the starting lineup. Josh Hart also is by proxy a playmaker and will drive the ball up the floor. Deuce's need now, he's not going to come off and be that energized bunny that's coming in just to get buckets now or be the backup role per se. But this kid could actually help fill in the blanks in a lot of different ways. In college, I believe they say he wasn't the point of the offense, but he played off of another guy as well. So he's
Yeah.
used to kind of being in a dual situation with the backcourt tandem. Would he not be a great fit with a guy like Dante DiVincenzo? Absolutely. Can he shoot the thing? From what I hear, yes, he can. So now we are bringing a different dynamic. Not that you want Deuce McBride gone,
No.
but he has become a little bit more expendable because, like I said, in the
And
pick order, you have Josh Hart and DiVincenzo. They're getting heavy minutes. They're going to get probably the bench minutes that they want. What is Deuce going to offer that they can't?
And
Not what
with the way he showed out last year, his value might be at an all-time high, considering
he
his
did.
minutes might disappear because he showed out.
He did. He's the one player that they developed. To be very honest, when we talk about development, people go, "Oh, Manuel quickly." All right, yeah, we know. I didn't think Emmanuel developed in that manner. But to see a guy like Deuce go through the system, he went into the G, was back and forth, back and forth. He was bouncing around. Then he finally came into his own when they gave him that extension. And we're like, wow, this dude took off. But now the dynamic on the Knicks have changed. Is he expendable? Yes. In my opinion, he is. Do I want him gone? No. Obviously, we want to keep the homegrown. But you have a lot of grown now. You got another guy on the bench that offers the dynamic you need for a second unit. A guy who can get people involved. He can hit the big shot. From what I understand, he's big time. He loves those big moments just as well.
He is. He's hit a lot of big game winners. He has.
So you're not talking like some scrub dude that's going to, fill in the booth for McBride. But we do need a backup center more than we need Deuce McBride right now. Just to keep it real, or starting center.
Absolutely.
So this is why he becomes expendable, not because you don't love him. It's because you have a guy that you've invested in at the 5 who's fragile. He's a fragile leg. And you need, if you can solidify that and bring this kid in to do the other work that Deuce would have been doing, it's a win. So this pick was a win by the Knicks, in my opinion. Something they've always needed, something that Brunson does not offer. Because Brunson does not have the vision. Brunson is a great isolation player. He's a friggin' stud on the floor. But nobody's gonna, mistake him for Magic Johnson. Maybe Magic Johnson's, Tragic Johnson, but not Magic Johnson, because he's not going to pass the ball to anyone because he doesn't have the court vision, nor does he have the physical nature to be able to make those hard passes as well, because he's short and he's very stocky. So he doesn't have that kind of vision. This kid has vision. You watch his highlights, he can play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys said, and I noticed one thing about the Knicks, how they're drafting, because it's very OKC in the sense that they pick a lot of guys who emulate guys they have, because in their mind they're saying, well, if they prove that they can play, we have more assets to trade, or we can trade the guys who are older, who have the bigger contracts and bigger deals. So, and I bring that up as well because the next guy reminds me a lot of Josh Hart.
Roster flexibility.
Yeah. So, this guy, he came on late in the draft process. We had heard about him possibly even going in with the Knicks, one of the Knicks 2 first-round picks. He didn't. He went in the second. But, excuse me, he does remind me of Josh Hart a lot. Very similar hustle type player. Really came on his last season, maybe a little bit better offensively, but I don't know. Again, what is he, 6'6", I think? Yeah, 6'6", 205. Definitely a wing. So I'm interested to see what he does. Obviously, he's going to have to prove something in the summer league to make the roster. But big kid, good size. We'll see. What do you guys think?
It comes from a good program, Kansas Jayhawks, man. I mean, they produced a lot of good players over the year. All I know about this player is what I've seen on video. Seems like a big, physical, athletic kid. Again, 23 years old, senior, good program, but also that he was kind of expected to go quite a bit higher. So it sounds like they got value with the pick. Again, he's probably going to go to Westchester, but it seems like the Knicks draft, they've gotten value wherever they've gotten, and they seem to have a sense with how things were going to pan out with the second round, and that there would be opportunities because, again, they played shuffleboard the entire time with those picks of trading the 40th pick for the 51st and for the 59th and all of that stuff. They seem to have a good sense of how things were going to fall and where their opportunities were going to be, because this seems like a type of player that the Knicks would draft in this situation. Tyler Kolek seems like a player that the Knicks would draft in this situation. The only one that we were really surprised with was the first round pick, which makes a little sense when you sit down and think about it. And even the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, he seems like someone the Knicks would have drafted. So, I get it. Again, I get the sense that this is a different type of front office with us. Like, these dudes really know what they're doing. And we haven't really had that in a long time. We've had a lot of, I don't know if you want to call them Pharisees and Sadducees in the temple, but, we got real people for the front office right now. So, I have full confidence in their draft. It seems like they did very well.
I thought Eric brought up a very good point when stating that it seems redundancy. They're picking with redundancy. And even when I look at Kolek, when I've watched a lot of his footage now, he has some Brunson in his game. In fact, he actually admires Jalen Brunson. When you hear him in interviews, he's like, that's the guy he likes, patterns a little bit of his game after. They're both very shifty. They're not the fastest dudes on the floor, clearly a little bit undersized, a slower foot, if you want to say it, the non-athlete, but gets the job done and has a killer way about how they play. When you look at, like you were saying, Pacome seems to be the outlier, like he's not like anything the Knicks have, but a lot of redundancy, a lot of now they're very teachable because now you have the templates to follow behind. So if Kolek is watching Jalen Brunson, that's golden. If that's your mentor on the court and on the floor, that's why I said with Pacome, it would be good to have him actually in the locker room. Because the one thing the Knicks got, and he talked about Miami Heat culture for the longest time, the New York Knicks have a culture now.
Yes.
They have very definitive, and maybe outside of, I'm going to say OKC, because Eric brought them up, and I'm thinking about those two teams because it's funny, the Knicks and OKC did business together. And they are really much in the same line of sight when you think about it. Two up-and-coming teams with a lot of promise on their team, championship aspirations. They're building a wonderful culture and structure for the team. Something we've not seen from the Knicks in, very long time. I don't even want to date ourselves, but it's been a very long time since we've seen such a competent front office who builds with a purpose. They move with a purpose, and they're drafting finally. And I know Eric is ecstatic to even hear that they finally draft with a purpose. Instead of just picking somebody random and throwing them in Westchester or say, hey, I hope you make it, kid. I hope you get here. But no kind of culture to follow behind in the system. And when you saw in Miami, they always draft and pick guys that fit what they're trying to do. You see it in San Antonio. They draft guys that fit what they're trying to do. You see in OKC, they draft guys that are fitting what they're trying to do. Now the Knicks are in that same driver's seat because we are seeing the redundancy in talent, which is nothing wrong. Because who would not want your players being around Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, around Jalen Brunson? These guys are culture builders. Sans the jokes you might see on their podcast, those are some damn dogs. Those are just damn dogs.
They are.
And it's like Josh Hart, as goofy as he is a maniac. So that's all I'm just going to say. When you hear the interviews and you watch him, you realize as much as we might think he's a goofball, man, they respect the hell out of him because of how he plays.
He's crazy, too.
He's a killer, dude.
He's a killer. I didn't think that until he went on, I think it was the podcast, The Pivot, and they were all football players on there, and it was like, oh, he was another basketball player. And the guy says, oh, no. He's not like the rest of them. So when football players start saying, no, he's a different one, that lets you know the reputation of Josh Hart.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see just how what happens with these guys and where they wind up at the end of the season or at the end of their career. Watch them as their careers unfold because this draft we've talked about from the beginning wasn't star heavy. So I even said it early on. Once you get past maybe 10 in this one, all the other guys picked, you could probably pick anywhere in that mix, and you wouldn't, you don't really know, but you don't really see much difference. So we'll see what happens. But I do like his size. I think he might eventually become a player someday. Like you said, Joe, he's a senior upperclassman. He doesn't shoot the three well. He's not a good outside shooter, but we'll see what happens. The guys, that's something that you can learn and be taught. So the last guy is a guy from Australia coming off
Melbourne United in the house.
Huh?
Melbourne United in the house.
Yes. And he's coming off an ankle injury, I think. He had a bad ankle injury that he had to rehab. And but definitely a raw talent. Looks like he has good skill, though. A good skill level. Very last pick. So, again, it's possible without the injury, he might have gone earlier. And like I said, who knows? If he goes in the end of the first, might be just as good as where he got picked. Who knows? Just won't cost as much money. But he might be another stashable player. Let him stay over in Australia for a little while, see what happens. But it's right now it's all about adding assets, adding value, adding players who can play. He does look like he can play from what I've seen. So anything stand out about him from you two?
I've watched him very limited, so I'm going to defer that to Joe. He's seen him more than I.
He's got a similar skill set to somebody that went, at the tail end of the lottery, a little bit after the lottery. The guy Emisi, who went to Memphis.
Yeah,
only not as touted. But again, this is the skill set we kind of require at that position in New York. Block shots, rebound. Can he run the floor? He seems like he can run the floor. It doesn't seem like he's stiff. Again, he's got good size, but we'll see what happens. I don't think he's the option that we need to bring in, obviously, for our backup center position. But who knows? It's the 60th pick in the week draft. If he turns out to be something, it's we party like it's 1999.
He looks like his body looks like a little like Andrew Bynum's body to me. His build and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the guy. When I first saw a picture of him, I'm like, oh, he kind of has that body. But yeah, like you said, if he just can develop to become something like that, I think we'd be okay. 7-footer, moves pretty well. So I think we'll be all right. 7-footers oftentimes also take a while to develop.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Let me think. Any other? Where was I going next? I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so we're still looking, obviously, for a backup center. Of the guys remaining out there, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about trading. I'm talking about of the available guys out there. Who do you think? Who are you looking? Is there anyone stands out that you think you'd want? I know there's one guy I'm thinking of, but either of you.
What do you think about Dwight Howard? Is that you there?
Well, no, it's actually
him hanging out in the meatpacking district.
There's a guy that I've liked for a long time. He's been on a lot of teams. I think he just got out of his European contract. Dario Saric. I'm a big fan of Dario Saric.
Not a center, though. Skilled, but not a center, really.
Well, he's not a traditional center, but...
It's about 6'10", right?
Yeah, he's about 6'10". He's definitely would be more of like the modern day center, kind of more of like a Miles Turner-ish. Not as good a defensive player, but just have how Miles Turner plays, not a down low player, more of a perimeter guy. But he's a strong guy, hard worker, a hustler, those kinds of guys. So he's somebody that I was looking around. I'm like, oh, he's still out there. So I think he would be a strong possibility if they're still going to address it at all. I haven't even thought about that. Like, what if this is what they're going with? What if they're?
That's what I'm thinking they are. I'm thinking the way I've been thinking about this, and then I've heard Katz on another pod talking about it. I mentioned about OG Anunoby earlier today in our chat, and the belief is that Tom views him as a possible 5, which I don't know why that would shock anybody. He needs Josh Hart as a 5, so absolutely nobody in New York.
Oh, man.
That if he had stayed healthy, he was going to do a little bit of experimentation with OG at the 5. Now, I don't buy. I mean, Eric brought it up at a great point. I don't buy him as a rebounder at all. I mean, technically, Randall, if you were
He's
to
not a rebounder at the 3. How is he going to be? He's not a good rebounder at the 3.
Yeah. See, I don't buy it at all. But we're talking about a guy in Tom Thibodeau who believes you can play every position as long as you got hired by the NBA, you can play anywhere on the floor. For me personally, no, I would not start him at the 5. But the 3 is probably where he should stay. Randall would have been probably ideal if we didn't deal with the shoulder injuries and all that stuff. Maybe you can spend a little bit of time there with him because he is a very good rebounder. Rim protector, absolutely not. I do believe Precious Achua is going to be the answer if he's willing to accept that contract. I think he probably can get paid more than $5 million somewhere. That's just in my opinion. So it does come down to does he want to be in New York with his family? That's what it's really going to come down to. I think they do value what he can bring. I value what he can bring also. We did like him. You know, we're pleasantly surprised. We started calling it the Precious Achua trade instead of the OG Anunoby trade.
At first, yeah.
Really, he was producing and he was available, and he surprised us how good he could play. So it was very a welcoming sight from him. I believe he can do, obviously, spend time at the 5. Absolutely. I'm not sold on the 5. I mean, I know the 5 is not the most important position for me personally as the NBA is constructed now. But this team utilizes the 5 in a big way, especially for offensive rebounding. So,
and rim protection.
I don't know. You can go with what we have and run a Tom Thibodeau type system. I don't think you can because I don't buy Jericho Sims. We know what Mitch is capable of doing. He's a special talent for this defense and for this team when healthy. I think you have to get someone, an Isaiah Hartenstein type, or at least a basic replication of Mitch. Maybe you go get a Robert Williams from Portland and see if he's available, the Time Lord. You got to get someone in here that can kind of replicate at least equally what Mitch does.
Yeah.
But I have a scary belief that they think they're okay because all these guys have been available. As diligent as the Knicks are, the front office, I cannot see them letting all these people escape knowing they need a center other than they must believe they got enough. That's the only thing I can really see. They must believe they have enough because you can get Mason Plumlee. You can get none of these guys that are open on the market. I find it hard to believe that they can't get any of these guys. I want to look at who's remaining on the list. I don't know who's remaining at the stand. With the 5.
It's a little slim.
It's very slim from what I understand. Because most of the top 10 or 12 guys, I think, are gone. So, you know, obviously iHeart being the main one. From what I understand, they said about Drummond wasn't one of those guys that he wasn't a bad guy. He just wouldn't have been a locker fit for the guys that they have in the locker. So I know a lot of people was talking about him. You know, listed number 6 on Yahoo Sports is Precious Achua as available center. So,
I was surprised they didn't take a flyer on Weissman or Bamba. I was really surprised at that, especially for what they got signed for. I mean, both of those guys have upside.
I don't see them being a Tom player. When I think about Tom Thibodeau's team now, and now we kind of get a peek into what the guys look like, Wiseman's no dog.
Yeah, but I think we're past that with the culture that we have established right now. We have an incredibly strong culture right now that Thibodeau's grown. So you stick the underachieving high lottery pick in that culture and expect the best out of it.
Yeah, that's it for me. His talent is so high that if you can crack that, whatever that code is with him, you have a potential start. I'm not even joking.
Some of these guys would have their foot in their ass if their motor wasn't right.
Yep.
That's the kind of locker room we have now.
Eric said crack. Yeah, Tom Thibodeau would crack him upside of his head. He would never. I'm telling you, I mean, I agree with you. To me, it makes sense that you can put in someone who's maybe not quite there into this culture and they should elevate. I don't think this coach gives a damn about that. You either come in a dog or you leave out on the leash. I don't think that you can come into this kennel and you got to get there. I think you're either there or you're not on this team because I can't picture. I'm like players in my mind. I don't know one soft Knick right now. Somebody point out the guy that's a soft Knick right now.
There isn't really.
There's not one of those dudes. When you talk from a culture standpoint, because there's a mentality with them. There's not one guy that I look and I go, man, that dude's soft as hell on the Knicks. He should be off because if you're soft, you're not on this team. You're just not. And a guy like Weissman and Eric, I mentioned to him, I said, I'm questioning why he's not an important player on somebody's team still. You're in Golden State, a winning culture. You got Draymond Green. Who's in somebody more than Draymond Green? That dude's a nut. That's a culture builder. Steph Curry's a culture person. These are culture guy. Steve Kerr's a culture person in Golden State.
That's an interesting point.
They shipped him. Now, Detroit, no culture whatsoever. They just a vulture. They ain't no culture there at all. So I can see him going there and maybe, flaring out a little bit. But Golden State got 4 banners. 4 banners, and you couldn't get on board with 4 banners? And a tough guy in Draymond Green. I mean, he's an egg-olio, don't get me wrong. But, part of why he hit Jordan Poole was because Jordan Poole was being disrespectful to Steve Kerr, too. So we got a culture guy who's going to kick you in the throat and kick you somewhere else too. But he wouldn't fit here.
Yeah, he's playing. I mean, obviously he's going to play for Carlisle now, so we'll see. I feel like that's probably the best possible coach for him because he's a little bit of a hard ass, but he's also a good teacher. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there. What about this guy?
Boban.
He'll hear you. He can hear you because his ears are big enough. He can hear you.
Yeah, those ears are like satellite dishes.
Oh man, him and Mitch on the same team. Oh, interviews would be so much fun.
Oh man,
Did you ever see him in the John Wick movies?
Yeah, I saw.
Yes.
That was pretty awesome.
Yes,
man. He's available. He's a free agent.
Well, you've heard Daniel Tice also be mentioned. That's one of the guys. He's undersized.
Tice is on the list. Boban, yeah, like I said. You could take a flyer on someone like Harry Giles. Another guy. I know.
He was talented too.
Still playing? I thought JaVale McGee retired. What the hell am I talking about? JaVale McGee's still playing. We want his crazy ass to come and play for us. That'd be fun.
He did get better over the years. I'll give him that much credit.
Yeah.
Well, he's good at he's not a good rebounder, which is funny, but he's a good shot blocker. So,
Isn't he the one that legit dunked on his own goal, early in his career or something like that?
And then he always gives that look like, what'd I do?
Which way did they go?
What'd I do? What'd I do?
I'm trying to look at anybody else. The ball, he went back to Phoenix, from what I understand. I don't know. Will you take a flyer on a guy like Luke? Playing at 5? He's more of a power forward.
Maybe Muscala? He's another guy who I think would fit. Like you're talking about culture. I feel like he might fit. Mike Muscala might fit the culture. Mm-hmm. He's definitely one of those types.
The thing that I worry about with this center situation as we look through right now is, what if Mitch gets hurt during the season, and we are in and we're playing well, and it's our window, and we know it's our window, and do we make a desperate decision, or are we forced into a desperate place where we need to give up whatever kind of assets we need to make that whole? I'm not comfortable with the plan. I have faith in the front office. I think they've earned that, but I'm not comfortable with this plan, the way it's rolling out. And can I throw one more thing out there that's been bothering me a lot?
Sure.
What is holding up the official announcement with the Mikal Bridges trade?
Yeah,
is there a move behind that? Are they maybe looking to solve that problem with the first apron combined with a move that may address this?
Yeah, because it's got to do with that, actually.
It's a real quiet front, man. I mean, we're not hearing anything.
Well, then you always know that they're up to something when they're a quiet front in New York. But from what the understanding is that the Mikal Bridges trade is done, technically, but the Knicks have always been wanting to shed that extra $5 million, I think it is, to send out so that they're not hitting the first apron. So my belief is that this might be them also trying to get someone else involved to maybe move off of someone else to get a center. So this could be an expanded trade aspect, because they talked about Jersey as we call them, Jersey, New York, and Utah. That's what the whole intermingling they were talking about. That
Kessler. Yeah.
I think it officially gets announced July 5th or 6th or something like that when they can finalize the deal. But
Yeah.
I think that they're kind of probably knowing Brock Aller. He's probably probably not sleeping until he can figure out how to squeeze the last number and get underneath that apron. So that's what they say is the reason why it's not been announced.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because officially the offseason doesn't technically begin, I think, until Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I think that's probably why they have a little bit of leeway. You can agree to things in principle, but you're not going to totally execute. Even all these contracts, like if any of these guys at this point, like, yeah, I just changed my mind, they technically could.
Okay.
They don't have to sign these contracts yet. So it's
Remember
rare
when
that happens.
Boozer did that?
Yeah, Carlos Boozer was the guy I remember. Yeah, I was just about to bring him up. Carlos Boozer. Seriously. And then the whole DeAndre Jordan thing with the Clippers the first time. I remember that as well when he signed with Dallas. And then he didn't, or it was the other way around with Jordan. He was the next guy I remember with that scenario. But yeah, the Boozer one is the famous one. Kind of the first guy I remember ever doing it. At least in my lifetime, I'm sure.
What do you guys think about Garza? Garza's his name?
He was a high pick. And he was a really productive college player. Very productive college player.
Yeah, Luka Garza. He was on Minnesota, I think, last year. Or I think he's a pending free agent also.
He's the guy, yeah.
Solid. I don't know if he's a rim protector, but I'm just saying that's another guy that's on the list.
Yeah, he was the guy who won College Player of the Year before Edie did. So Edie won it the last 2 years. He won it the year before. I think fantastic scorer. Like he's an offensive player. But he's not quick. He doesn't have quick feet. Same kind of things people that say about Edie, except he's not 7'4". So people less likely to take a chance.
Cody Zeller.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. I was looking at the list. There's really not a lot of guys around left. So maybe a tie. Maybe it is what you're saying. Like maybe that is the final piece that they're gonna try and expand it to get a backup or another center in this trade. I just know if it's Utah, it's Danny Ainge is gonna ask for something stupid.
Well, they do have another player there. Omar, what's his last name? Omar Yurtseven. Maybe that could be someone they can do. He's on Utah, actually. He's 6'11". His point per game was 5 points a game, 4.6 rebounds a game. Obviously, probably limited minutes. Yeah. He's
right? Me Too's the guy you brought up. You just brought up Me Too. I think the guy from Detroit. Shizame Me Too, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But there's a team option there, so they probably exercise that.
No, actually, this is Omar. You're 7. He's on YouTube.
No. Hey, you mentioned someone before.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I thought you might have said Me Too before. That's all.
Yeah.
As you guys can see, we don't know who they're gonna pick either. We're sitting here trying to figure it out because the pickings are very slim at this point. I mean, I love Boban as a person. I would love him to be a Knick just to have him on the team because he's hysterical.
Yeah.
But as a player, I don't think he could play and give us what we need. But again, he'd be fun to have around. It's going to be an interesting season.
It's shaky. To me, it's a very shaky time. I love everything the Knicks did, but this bothers me a little bit more because you knew, from what I understand, Hartenstein's offer was the minute the playoffs ended or whatever.
That's what they said.
They already had the lineup knowing that he could skate. So they knew the imminent threats of OKC early on. It's like to not have a pivot, which is very strange for this team that is always very dotting every I and crossing every T.
That could be a lack of flexibility though with the roster and the aprons.
Yeah,
I'm sure they would have loved to have had a backup option, but maybe financially it's not something that's feasible. But then again, you see guys like Bamba signing for $5 million. I don't know if I entirely buy that. I don't know. It's difficult to see what they're doing because I can't buy that this is the plan for that position, especially considering how important Hartenstein was to that roster and that backup center position was to this team. To just, we're good,
Yeah, I mean, logically, I'd agree with you. I mean, yeah, they have to do something because I like Mitch a lot, but we know he gets hurt, so you can't rely on him To hold
That's
down
not
the
a
position.
viable plan. Mitch is not a viable plan for that position at this point.
Yeah, so they have to do something. I love the Kessler idea. I think that'd be great, but again, it's what are you giving up to
Can you
get
get
him?
him?
Yeah, and can you get him here? Utah. I mean, I don't really believe. I've said this many times. I don't really believe they were ever trading Mitchell to the Knicks. But if you believe other reports that how close they were, and it seemed like every time they were close, Ainge asked for something else.
Yeah.
Right. So we know how he operates.
That may have been driven not necessarily by sensibilities of the position, but maybe more by vendetta from knowing that Mitchell had up basically without actually coming out on ESPN on First Take and saying, I want to go to New York, I want out of here. Maybe that was the driver for some of that. Hope that he's going to make good business decisions, and if moving out some assets for Kessler is a good decision, he'll make that and not do it just simply because it's the Knicks.
It's funny, when Mitchell signed his extension yesterday, everyone was saying the only reason he signed because the Knicks don't want him anymore, and the Nets are a mess.
Yeah,
I agree with that because
That's what they said.
I think he was a little spawned, but once they got Brunson, there was no need for it.
Yeah, once they got Brunson and Brunson proved to be the player he is, the market for him here was like nothing. Like the better Brunson played and showed he was, the meter went lower and lower and lower. They're like, we don't need him anymore. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see the next few weeks because we definitely need a center and a backup. Like I said, I'll be fine with it if it's Precious. I'm fine with him. I think he plays well there, but then you're like, what if he gets hurt or something happens? Like, I don't know. It's just a scary, scary thought. And again, I love Mitch, I said, but he gets hurt. So you need to have somebody else capable of playing the position at a high level. And
I think you brought up a really good point earlier, Eric. I think that the best plan of attack right now for the Mitch situation is for him to drop weight.
Yeah.
I think you hit that on the head there. I think that him having more, considering his proclivity for lower extremity injuries, the more weight that you have on that. That's one of the things that wrecked Yao Ming, being 7'7" and that heavy on a pair of feet. Eventually his feet just caved in, essentially. I mean, that's not a medical term, but it's pretty much what happened. I think with Mitch, losing that weight is more important than the upper body strength was lending to rebounding, because he was a plus rebounder when he wasn't that weight as well.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more agile. I mean, remember those days when he was blocking 3-point shots and leaping out? That was lower weight, and then that went away.
Ty and I were talking about that not that long ago.
Yeah, it's very weird. The weight change definitely. I think he became something that he thought that he needed to become. He had to get stronger. We saw Mari do that at one point. He put on all that weight, and it might have been the downfall of him more bulking up. Just because you can put on that weight don't mean you carry it very well in a small room. Yeah. So, he definitely has to. I think his conditioning is an issue too. I don't know I don't know if he's smoking turkeys on the off.
I think turkey necks.
Maybe it's chickens. I know he likes to fish. I do. I'm just saying. I'm just wondering about the smoking habit.
Well, yeah. I also think with him, he's a guy that if he's around the team and things, he's probably fine. But then when he gets hurt and he's away, that's when he adds the weight. And, I wonder if he's one of those. It's not like Zion level, who I've said many times could look at a piece of cake and gain 30 pounds. That's just seems to be his body type. But yeah. But with Mitch, it's kind of it does seem like he comes in, he's in good shape.
Yeah.
And he gets hurt, and we see him again, and he's struggling. Like, okay, what were you doing beside? I know you can't move, but damn, that means you have to eat bags of chips and bonbons and all that fun stuff. Yeah. So I can eat it because I'm whatever, but you shouldn't eat it.
I look great. He don't look great fat, so it's a big difference. Well, you got to get up.
We're gonna wrap this one up. But Joe, real quick, how's the shoulder coming?
All right, so I am going to be finally out of this brace on the 15th of this month.
All right.
6 weeks in. It's like having a big octopus strapped to your body pretty much 24/7. But shoulder's doing good, man. This was a lot less painful than my first surgery, and the physical therapist says I'm about 2 weeks ahead of where I am range of motion-wise on my rehab.
Excellent news. Excellent news.
Oh,
yes.
It's because of the Wolverine blood.
I told you. Adamantium. I didn't told you.
The adamantium shoulders.
I wish that stuff was real. Anyway.
True.
Yeah, well, that movie's coming out too. Deadpool and Wolverine's coming out end of the month.
That should be a hoot.
Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I noticed that you posted the Nosferatu trailer on your other site.
Yes, we did, and yes, that is something I'm sure.
My money.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about that on the next episode of Straight Outta Gotham.
I love that.
Pete and I do it, but yeah, we will definitely be touching on those trailers because I did like the trailer as well. It looked very good, so we'll see what happens there. All right, we're going to put a ball on this one, guys. So anything you want to tell anybody, the floor is yours.
I would say thank you for everybody that tuned into the draft show. We really had a blast doing it. Thank you to Jonathan for bringing his insights and expertise onto the show. It was great doing the show with you, Jonathan. Look forward to future collaborations. Ty, you did a great job running that. It was just really a good time by all. Eric, you were missed. Everyone, thank you for your continued support of the show. This is Upstate Joe. You can find me at Upstate Joe, AKU for All Knicked Up, and at the fan page.
All right. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, and Jonathan really needs to come forward and just really tell the truth. It wasn't that. He's out there actually trying to get his Ronnie James tattoo. We all know what this is. I hate when people are telling lies and stories. You just need to come forth and just admit to the world that this is what you're doing right now because you're hanging out with JJ Redd. We should have touched on that subject, but we'll wait till Jonathan comes on. Talk about the debacle that's La La Land because that is in itself needs its own secret. But needless to say, miss you, Jonathan, and once again, love you guys. We had a great show, like Joe said. I'm only as good as you guys are, and that's why it was perfect, and we did a great job. Thank everybody for the support. Always, Coach is always in here. He's a day one, A1. He's been riding with us for a minute, but nobody was even looking at us. So shout out to him. Just the support on the fan page is great. We're trying to keep it going. We have a lot of good numbers in here tonight. We had a lot of eyes on us, which has been fantastic. Just want to thank everybody for that, showing support to the show and trying to come up with some more content. We have Summer League approaching, and that's something that we are going to talk a little bit about. And just try to put together another show. Maybe talk about off-season conditioning or anything else. Anybody got an idea they want to see or talk about? Shoot us a message, and I'll try to come up with something creative to kind of get us talking about basketball in what is now the off-season for us. And who knows, maybe we will sign a free agent by the time Monday hits, and we won't be crying all summer, But needless to say, thank everybody, and like I said, make sure you pay attention to the fan page. Get at us. Much love and respect.
Thank you, Ty. Yeah, it was good to be back this week. I did miss doing the last couple shows, especially the draft show. I love the NBA draft, so the fact that I wasn't there, but you guys, and the time that I hopped in and saw, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I keep telling you guys make me better than I am. So thank you guys as well, you two guys, for always being here and being part of the team. I enjoy doing this, especially talking about the Knicks. I do a lot of creative stuff with my with my pop culture leanings, but I don't do many sports shows, so this is the only one that I do, and it's a team that I love, and it's with a couple of guys who I really enjoy spending time with. So thank you guys. And the fans, yes, we've had about 80 people watching tonight, which is pretty damn good.
Yes.
Watching three old guys talk about basketball. It's a very, 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 very nice feeling that you guys are coming in and coming back and watching us. And showing the support and the love that you've given us. As Ty was talking about, the shows will probably be more sporadic. I talked about doing different kinds of shows as well. We might hop on and do different topics that we wouldn't discuss during basketball season. They'd be basketball related, but not necessarily Knicks related. So we talked about putting those kinds of shows out there. So maybe we'll do some of those. Stay tuned to the X account. Stay tuned to the Facebook account. And all announcements that we give will be in either of those places. Should be in both of those places. I'm trying to work on the YouTube page to try and get it where I can post announcements. It's a little bit tricky over there to do. I'm also trying to work on bringing some other content creators on the show on All Knicked Up. There's other Knicks content creators that I've gotten to know that I like. I think they're respectful guys. I think they'd be good additions to the show and give a different perspective from the fans. They're younger guys as well, so I think that would be helpful just to have a younger type of take on things. So I'm definitely trying to get some of that put together as well. But for now, since it is 4th of July Eve, I want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day for tomorrow. Enjoy the time with your family, your friends. Eat some barbecue food, go swimming, go to the beach, watch fireworks, celebrate the fact that we live in a country where 3 idiots like us can sit here and do this, and people will come and watch, and we don't have to fear any kind of retribution from anyone coming after you. So for Ty and Joe, I'm Eric. You're watching All Knicked Up. Happy 4th. We'll see you soon.